So in the first half, we saw how to create a new scenario, how to run the model, how to look at model outputs, and do some analysis on that model output. Now, in the second half, we'll work through creating some scenarios. So this is more about how to make changes to the network itself or to the land use data, and then what impact that has on how you do subsequent runs. Okay, so let's get started. We'll go through few land use update scenarios, and then we'll also look at a transit update, and then if time permits, we can look at regular link up, network or highway network update scenario as well. Okay. So we would look at three land use update scenarios where we will change some land use settings, or one of the land use variables, either at the MAZ level or at the TAZ level, and we'll look at scenario 2 where we will add households, and then the second one will add employment, and then in the third one we'll add hotel units. So let's get started with the first scenario, which is to add households. And in this example, we will add 250 households each to two of the MAZs in the network, and then the two MAZs are MAZ 30310, and then the IDs do not really matter here, but then these are two MAZs in what is called as the Oak Hill neighborhood. So the process of creating a new scenario, again, it's similar to what we saw before. You would start with your base year version file, save it as a different, a new version file, change the name. So let's keep doing these steps as we go through these slides here. Let's go back to the model setup, and let's start the base year version file by double clicking. This takes a few seconds to load. And then you can go to the file menu and then click on save as. So this is a household build scenario. So let me just add a suffix to the name, household build, and then you can hit save. All right. Now, to make your life easier, we have already pre-saved a GPA file, which would make it easier to visualize the network to make changes. So let's load that graphics file, and all the graphics files are in the graphics subdirectory. And then here is land use update .gpa. You can simply drag and drop it into the network here, and you can say okay. All right, so it just makes things more visible and more clear. If you want, you can also turn off the zones, because in this example we are making changes only to MAZs or POIs. Okay, so we have done that. Now for those of you who joined us today, um, MAZs in NERPMAB are represented as points of interest. Points of interest is a type of network object, and we create it as a polygon or shape object. And POIs represent MAZs in NERPMAB, and zones represent TAZs. And NERPMAB has two geographies, unlike a trip-based model, which usually works only with one geography zone or traffic analysis zone. ABMs generally have two geographies, traffic analysis zone and a smaller geography called as microanalysis zone. So in this example, we have to update two MAZs and update their, add households to them. Right. So one way to do this would be, we can open the MAZ list. You can click on MAZ layer, go to list, and then once you are here, you can look for the two MAZ numbers that we were looking at that we want to update. And in this case, you can, there's a filter icon there. And then when you click that, it would open this small box. And then here you can enter the ID. So we are looking at 30310. That's one of the MAZs. And then, there are different things that you can choose here. You can say equal, does not equal, larger than, smaller than, between. So it's very, very useful, and you can create a variety of filter conditions on your list. And then once you hit, an equal, it would filter out the entire list and only show you that MAZ. And if you simply click on that and look at the network, it would highlight that MAZ for you. So that's the first MAZ that we want to update. So one way to go about this would be, you can simply go here. Let me quickly check. You can simply go here and look for the appropriate field that you want to update, and then you can make changes to that field. If you want to add households, or if you want to subtract households, or whatever change that you want to make. But in this case, we would do it slightly differently. The filter that we created here filters only the list. It doesn't filter the actual, the network. So in order to filter out the network itself, you can create a separate filter file. And that filter file, you can create by, again, going through the filter menu. So let's create a filter file to filter these two MAZ IDs. So another thing, another reason to do that was in this filter, when you're simply filtering the list, you'll have to filter one MAZ at a time. If your IDs are sequential, then you can use the between option, or some other options, or top n or bottom n, to select multiple. But you'll have to come up with some sort of criteria that would filter all the images that you want to update. You can do it one at a time also. It's not the wrong way to do it. You can do it that way, but just want to show you different ways in which you can approach this problem. All right, so let's create a filter. So once you go to the filter menu, and then you select that you want to create a filter on POI category MAZ, and then after that it would show this filter GUI where you can create filters. by combining different conditions. So we will try to create a filter on the such that it selects both the zones. And once you create that filter, you can save that filter for future use. And then once you apply that filter on the network, you would see that it would highlight only the filtered zones. All other zones sort of become passive. And once that has happened, you can easily go back to the list and then make changes to the fields that we want to make. All right, so let's go back here and let me right click on the POIs layer, go to filters, and then you can click on POI category MAZ, and it would open this GUI to create new filters. All right, so it already adds one operation or one condition for you. So here you got to select which attribute you want to apply this condition on. So we'll select number in this case, and then you got to set what kind of condition or operation you want to apply on number. So we want an exact value, so we would say equal value. And then in the operand, you would enter the ID, the POI ID. Okay, and then we got to add another condition for the second MAZ that we want to update. So we'll just say you click on that plus sign, it would add another condition. You can select again number, because for the second MAZ also we want to check out its number, POI ID. And then I can again select equal to value in the operation, and then enter the ID of the second MAZ that we want to update. Now, if you would notice, as we added the second condition, this small button popped up here. So it's asking you, if these conditions, how do you want to combine them, whether it's an OR operation or an AND operation. So in our case, it's an OR operation. So if you simply click on that, it would change it to OR. All right. And then if you want to save this filter for future use, you can simply come here and then say save as a new filter file. You can give it a name, MAZ households update or anything like that, and then click on that green tick mark, and it would save it. You can, if you go back to the working directory, that is where you would see where the filter was created, mass households update. And you can move it to the filters subdirectory for future use. All right, so and then you can hit OK here. So the filter has been created, and now you would see that as soon as the filter was created, now only these two zones are being shown, and that's because this filter is active. So if you click on that that filter icon again, now it would show all the MAZs, but then if you click on that, it would show only the filtered ones. And if we go back to the list here, so let me remove this filter. You can remove the filter by simply unchecking that thing, and it would go off. So right now, data for all the MAZs is being displayed, but then you can activate the filter on the list too by, if you see this button where filter and there is an exclamation mark, you can simply click on that, and then it would apply the filter on the list as well. So now you see the two only the 2 rows for 2 MAZs that we want to update in this exercise are being displayed. All right, so now the next step is, once you have this, you can simply go and make changes to the fields here. But you would have noticed that there are so many fields here, and you may not be interested in all the employment fields or student enrollment or anything like that. So you can either go here and select the attributes that you you're interested in, or you can load a pre-saved list layout file. So in this case, I'm going to load a pre-saved list layout. So let's go to listings here, and you have this mas_hhs.llax. So I'm going to simply drag and drop it here, and we get this nice layout where only POI ID and then the household fields and a few other things are displayed. So one thing that I want to note here is, we are looking at POI ID, and this may be different from your MAZ ID, because MAZ IDs are not necessarily sequential, but POI IDs are sequential. But you can also create a filter on MAZ ID if you want. You can do the same process using MAZ ID, but just for uh, making everything intuitive, I just went by POI ID because we are looking at POI objects in the end. But this is just a note, and going forward, agency may decide to update the MAZ IDs or make them consistent with the actual sequential IDs. All right, so you have displayed the subset of fields that you want to update. Now what? So next, you can simply edit the values in that list view itself. So let's say we decided to add, I think in the example, we are adding 300 households. This is just an example. You can add how many ever households you want. So let's go here and maybe let's add 300 households each. And remember, if this was a 2045 scenario, then you would update the 2045 field. But since we are creating a 2015 scenario, we would change the household 15 field, right? So instead of 69, let's say if we add 300 more households here, it would become 369, and 255 plus 300 becomes 555, right? So once you have done that, the next step is to you can save it at this point. So simply click on the save icon, and then you can say replace file. And so when you go about running this scenario, there are multiple ways to do this. So either you can run it from scratch, where you run all the tools that create inputs, everything. You rerun population sim and all the land use data tools and everything. You can do all of that, but if you want to save some time, you can use inputs from the base year scenario and choose to run only the inputs or the tools that would require rerunning, right? So when you're changing mass data, if you would remember our discussion on input data workflow, when the mass data is being updated, pretty much everything needs to be rerun, right? And if you do not remember, or if you're having a hard time deciding, which steps to run on which you can skip, you can load a pre-saved procedure sequence file. So we have created pre-saved procedure sequence file, so you can open the MAS household update procedure sequence, and let's open that. So it will show you exactly which steps you can skip. So in this case, when you made an update to the MAS data, you need not run the DaySim network data prep and DTLI tool, because they're completely independent of the MAS data input. And so if you did a base year run and you had run those tools, so all the inputs that were needed were already created by those tools. So you can save some runtime by skipping these two steps. The DaySim DTA and network data prep, it might take up to if you're running it on a regular laptop, it can take up to like 45 minutes to an hour, about an hour to run. So you can save 1 hour of your runtime by skipping these steps. But if you're unsure, and you just created a completely new scenario with no inputs of any sort, it's okay to rerun everything as is. And let's say if you loaded this and you want to go back through the regular procedure sequence file, you can go back here, go back to the procedures, and you can say model with tools, and that would bring you back to the original setting with all the required steps activated. So you can do this too. Right. So in running creating a new scenario and running the model, you can either load a pre-saved procedure sequence and run through only steps that are required, or you can run the whole thing again too. And yes, so saving is very important after whenever you make any change to your version file. So again, let's save it quickly here, and then okay. So at this point, this exercise is complete, and you can run the model, and you can look at how different things changed. This is a very small change, so you may not expect big differences. But still, if you are interested, you can analyze, and we'll look at that in a minute. But before that, the compare network feature comes in very handy when you're making changes to your input. So let's quickly compare this to the base year network and see if it shows changes or not. So we can go to file, compare transfer networks, and then compare current network with version file, and then let's select the base year version file, and then you can say version file is base, that is fine, and then you can say okay. And just takes a few seconds to compare the two networks. All right, so this is showing only one change right now, because that was the only thing that we changed between the two networks, right? And it says that we modified two objects, and it would show you exactly what was changed. So we changed the HH15 field, and it would show you exactly, okay, you change these fields for these two POI IDs, and it was 69 and you made it 369, and it was 255 and you made it 555. So comparing networks can come in very handy if you want to review the changes. So if you are in a position where your job is to make sure that scenarios have been created correctly, this is what you would do. Compare the network and then review all the changes in this comparison interface that gets generated. Okay, so at this point, let me close this for now. And we did run the model with updated households. So just to quickly show you how this was looking, or what changes this change resulted in in terms of flows and other things. So let's wait for this to open. Let's go to the network here, and let's also open the the base year run, so that we can compare and see how the flow got impacted when we added almost 600 households around that region. So you would expect that more trips or more flow would be generated out of those zones. So let's first look at the base here, and let me and so the POI polygons, they also have a point and a line object. So if you want to remove them, you can simply uncheck these boxes, and then it would only show you the regular POI polygons. You get rid of this, and then these were the two MAZs that we updated. So all the demand is assigned at the zone level. So let's see which zone do each of these belong to. So I think that MAZ belongs to zone 1073. And to see how much traffic is coming out of that zone, let's start the connectors here and then activate the connectors. And then if you select the outgoing, one of the outgoing connector, and we can look at the quick view tab here. Let's say we select volume DA, the daily volume, and you see, so this is the 2015 base, and you have around 1500 auto volume daily volume along this connector, and see how it is looking in this scenario. So again, let's do the same thing. Okay, so connectors are activated here, and let's select this outgoing connector, and volume DA is also selected here. So you can see the daily volume along that connector has increased. So it used to be 1540, and now it's almost 1950. So almost a increase of 400. And this zone has two connectors. So if you look at this connector, this has 472, and then this is 352. So again, almost an increase of 120 in this direction as well. So this does make sense. We added a few households here, so more households means more trips in the ABM, and more trips means more traffic. So this was just to do a sanity check on if your changes if they make sense or not, if the outputs are consistent with your changes or not. Okay, so let me close this for now, and I'll keep this version file open for now, which is the base here. And let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so that is how you would make changes to household inputs in your model. Now let's look at another scenario where we would add employment. And in this example, we would add 500 service jobs to these two MAZs. And we didn't put a lot of thought into this is just an example, so we didn't put a lot of thought into which MAZs or where can we add service jobs, but we sort of just looked at places where new development is coming in, or anything like that. But in your case, when you are actually working on projects or creating scenarios for your projects, you would exactly know where to make those changes and how much change to make. So in this example, for this example we selected these two MAZs, MAZ 106, and again the ID is not of importance here, but this is just to identify where exactly to make the change, right? And then we'll again start the process the same way. You would start with a clean base year version file, save it um, with a different name, and then from there you can go ahead and make changes as needed. And in this case, so let's say you open the version file. Let's start with the first step here. Let me go back to the model setup here, and then you can start with the base year version file. Another quick way of, let's say if you want to create a new scenario, another quick way of doing it is you can simply copy the file in the file explorer itself. But a neat way of doing it is by going through Visum. So let's wait for this version file to open up, and again go to the file. You can do save as, and let's select a different name this time. This is the employment build scenario, so you would say emp and then build. Can save, and again to make it visually more appealing for making changes, let's load the land use update.gpa. And which one I'm making? I believe it's this one. Yes. All right. Now we are making changes to. We need to look for the MAZ that we have to update. So there are so many MAZs. In NERPMAB there are close to 55,000, and it might be very hard to, if you simply, even if you label them, it will be very hard to point out exactly where that MAZ is, where you want to make that change. So what you can do is you can use this find network object feature. But before you do that, make sure the POIs layer is activated. And once you have done that, then you can click on the find network object, and it will open this window. And here you can enter the POI ID, right? And so it would highlight or filter out that MAZ ID for you here, and then you can right click on that and click on zoom. So it would take you to that exact location. So this is where we are. Let me zoom out a little bit. Yeah, so this is 10680. That is the first MAZ, and then in this case, the next MAZ is also just next to it, which is 5506. So that's how you can reach or find the MAZ in the network. And the same thing you could be used for zones or links or nodes. If you somehow know the node ID or TAS ID or something, you can use the find feature and find that network object. All right, so you have found the zone or the POI where you want to update the employment. So this time we are going to make change to this network object slightly differently. So last time, if you would remember, for the making the household update, we created a filter, and then all the the images where we wanted to make changes were filtered out, and then you opened the POI list, and then the list was also filtered, and then you um, manually made changes to the field that needed to be updated. In this case, it's easy to edit network objects, especially if you're editing only one or two objects, to do those updates on the network itself. So that is how we are going to do it this time. And the way you can edit a network object is by simply double clicking on that network object. So the zone 10680, let me double click on that, and it would open the edit POI window, right? So here, you can select the user defined attributes tab, and it would show you all the user defined attributes, right? And you can scroll down, and right here you would see is the field for service employment, EMP, SVC, and again the employment fields are also by segmented by year. So if this is a 2030 scenario, then you would update the 2030 field. If it's a 2045, then update the 2045 field. But this is a 2015 scenario, so we'll make change to the EMP SVC 15 field, and this is 0 here, and we are will add 250 employment to each of these two MAZs. So since it's 0, 0 plus 250 is 250. And then since we added service employment, the total employment also needs to be updated to be consistent. So we'll update the total employment also to 250. And then after that, you can hit OK. And that's it. You have updated this MAZ. Now let's go to the other MAZ and let's do the same steps. Select the user defined attributes tab, and then scroll down. So you see in 2015 the employment is service employment is 0 here, so you can change it to 250. And then the total was 27. That means some other employment was there in that MAZ. So this becomes 277. Then you can say okay, and that is it. After this, you can save the version file, and you can go back to the procedure sequence again. Same steps here too. Either you can run the procedure sequence as is, but let's say if you want to save time and skip some of the steps that aren't needed, and if you have you're using inputs from your base run, you can open a pre-saved procedure sequence which goes by the name MAZ emp update, employment update. You can open that, say okay, and you see for when you're making employment change, it doesn't change the synthetic population, or doesn't update, doesn't affect any of the DSIM tools. So you're safe to run only the DSIM buffering tool and the export land use data steps. So you can save a lot of time by skipping running population sim or the DSIM network and DTA tools. But if you're unsure and you're starting from a very clean setup, then you can always run all the steps. It's just a matter of waiting maybe an extra R or R&a of runtime. And the total, the whole model run without any, of the tools, if you're using a machine with maybe 32 GBs of RAM and maybe I don't know, up to 3 gigahertz of processor speed, it would complete in about 3.5 hours, assuming it is running all 7 iterations. So each iteration may take about half an hour to run. Okay, so that's how you would make changes to employment. And this time we saw how to do that from the network editor window itself. And you can load the MASMP update file to if you want to skip some of the steps. Okay, and as always, once you're done, you can save the file for future use. And that is it. So let's go to the next scenario. And one thing I forgot to mention is, once you have completed your employment scenario, you can again compare it with the base network, and it would show you exactly what changes you made. And if you accidentally made some changes that you didn't intend to make, then those will show up, and then you can go and correct those mistakes. But that's the normal workflow, that you would make changes and then compare the network to the base here, and then review it and then finalize it. So in this example, we'll add 100 hotel units. So we added employment to the two MAZs, service employment. So maybe some of this would lead to additional hotel units in that MAZ. And one thing to note here is in NERPMAB model, hotel units, the data for this is specified at the TAZ level. So far, we had been making changes at the MAZ level. So you should always make a change for a variable at the lowest geography. So like most demographics like households and employment is available at MAZ level in this model. So any changes should be made at the MAZ level, because the TAZ level fields, they get aggregated from MAZ level. But there are certain fields such as hotel units which are specified only at the TAZ level. So for these, we'll have to make changes at the TAZ level, right? So, and the zone which contains the two MAZs where we made employment changes, zone 2346. So this time we'll make changes in zone 2346. All right. So the process is again the same. You start with the base year version file. Just give it 1 or 2 seconds to load. And then you can do save as, and then I'll just give it a name, hotel bill or something like that. And again, you can load the land use update GPA file so that you can. It's more easier to view the network. And then, so in this case, we have to make change to a zone. So we need to look for zone 2346. So let's activate the zone layer first, and then you can go to that find network object tool, and then look for 2346. Again, right click, zoom, and it would take you to that location, right? So that is 2346. And if you activate the POI layer, you would see the two MAZs that we made changes to earlier. But this time we are making changes to the TAZ layer. So, again, you can simply double click and it would show you different values for the zone, and you can go to the user defined attributes, and here HM units, that's the field for number of hotel units. So you can update this to 100, say okay, and that's all. You can say replace file, save it. So one thing that we did here was we started with the base year version file, but let's say if you wanted to add the hotel units and employment at the same time, you could have started with the employment build version file and then made changes to the HM units field in the TAC layer. So, if you want to have both changes at the same time, then you can start from a previous build version file and then further update that. Okay, so that was all. That's like very easy to do, but I think like these are some frequent use cases for agency to make changes to. So that's why we are quickly going through these. Right, so we looked at this, and then you can make changes to HM units here. And then finally, again, for the hotel update, you can do the same process where either you can rerun everything or you can run only the necessary steps, and you can load the MAZ hotel update procedure sequence file to preload the settings or the steps activated, the necessary steps activated. Okay, and final step, as always, save your version file after making changes, and then you can again do a network comparison to review all your changes.